Today I'm reviewing 3 different kinds of Jobeky drum triggers. You use these guys to convert your acoustic drum set into an electronic drum set. That's coming up. What's up guys, Justin Greenwald here, welcome to 65 Drums. This is the place to keep on top of all things E-drum related, so consider subscribing if you haven't yet. I'm glad to be back. I actually keep ahead maybe 3 videos usually, and now I'm down to none because I was really sick, I had a fever, I was throwing up, and I was working really long hours at my job. So if my voice sounds a little funny, that's why. I'm finally getting over that. I know a few of you were wondering why I haven't made this Jobeky drum trigger review yet. And it's because, not because I was sick, it was because I like to play with a product that I own for like, I don't know, maybe a month or at least 2 weeks before I make a full review video. That's why when people ask me in the comments whether I liked it or not, I was always a little bit vague because I was trying to save that for this review. Again, there are 3 different kinds right here. You've got the side-mounted triggers, you've got the center-mounted triggers right here that I have for this Sonar Force 2001 snare, and then of course you have the kick drum trigger, which is very similar to this snare trigger with like one exception. I actually only bought this snare trigger. Jobeky kindly gave me all these tom triggers and the kick drum trigger along with some other products I'm going to review later on. They saw my unboxing video and that's how they knew I existed. That was very nice of them to send this stuff to me, but it is an actual review. I'm going to tell you the things I like about it and the things I don't like about it. So let's start off with these side-mounted triggers right here. Really simple, not a ton to it, and that's one of the reasons why I like it. This thing's actually really easy to install. You unscrew one of these screws on the inside of your drum shell, you slide this in, you put the screw back in, you screw it over top with the washer, and now you just slide it forward and backwards until you get the right amount of pressure against the snare drum head right here. If it's too far away, you'll lose a lot of sensitivity. So you gotta just find the right amount of pressure when installing any drum trigger. And that's why doing a review is hard, because half the time you're wondering, is the drum trigger really good or really bad, or am I just really good or really bad at installing a trigger? Really simple design. You've got this foam rod right here. Alesis uses foam rods as well. Roland uses foam cones, and like Jobeky Drum, they use foam squares. Everyone seems to do it slightly different. I don't know if there's like a patent issue with this whole thing. And then when you flip this over, you can see the rim piezo. This doesn't stick to the drum shell itself. It just stays on the trigger right here. And of course, you've got this 1/8 inch in. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a 1/4 inch input. I don't know what all this is in metric, but in the United States, we have 1/4 inch cables, which is this. This is what you actually plug into your drum module. And then you've got 1/8 inch, which is this size right here. The thing about buying one of these drum triggers from Jobeky is that you'll have to buy one of these guys. This is an adapter. You plug this onto your 1/4 inch cable like that, and now you can plug straight into the trigger. I just personally don't like the fact that I have to use an adapter to use this drum trigger. I just wish this was a 1/4 inch input, and maybe in the next version they'll do that. What Jobeky wants you to do is actually go buy one of their products. This is a cord they sell. One end is 1/8 inch, the other end is a 1/4 inch output. And this is supposed to go through the air vent of your drum. The only problem for me is that my Sonar Force 2001 drum set, all the air vents are in the wrong places. On the floor tom, the air vent is right next to one of the legs, and like on the kick drum, one of the air vents is like down at the floor. It's at all the wrong angles. And at the same time, the air vents are too small. I can't fit this out the air vent. So I'd actually have to drill into my acoustic drums in order to fit this out. And you know what? That's probably okay. I'll probably just take a drill or something and widen the air vents on those drums so I can use this at least for the high tom. It looks a little bit messy when you don't have like a bottom resonant head. I can go buy a special resonant head from, I think our drum sells one. I'd probably just want to widen that air vent so I can use this guy. Also, one other gripe about this cable is that it's way too long. I don't know how long this is. This is like 3 feet long. And remember, this is all going to be like stuffed inside of your drum shell. So this may be the only time in my entire life that I'm complaining that a cable is slightly too long. It's nice that they do have a solution here, and you can buy 1/4 inch cables that go to an 1/8 inch end. That's the only gripe I really have about this drum trigger. This is a solid, extremely cheap drum trigger. There's not really anything to complain about. It's got like an industrial design. It's nothing fancy or anything. The only problem with buying any Jobeky drum trigger is that international shipping is murder. $40 on top of that for international shipping. I don't know, it was kind of annoying, but I know half of my viewers are actually from Europe, so shipping over there is probably a lot cheaper for you guys since you're a lot closer to the Jobeky headquarters. These triggers, they're extremely cheap. Let's talk about this snare trigger right here because I'm pointing at it right now. This trigger is actually almost identical to that one, except that the rim trigger piezo is actually mounted on the shell right here. It's got like a double-sided sticky foam on it. You just stick it to the rim, or the inside of the shell actually, and it doesn't come off. It stays there like a champ. So this is sitting on something that can extend and contract. It's these two brackets that slide this way and that way. And that's really nice because I could make this fit a 10-inch drum. Like, this can fit a bunch of different sizes. I can't extend it past 14 inches, but my biggest problem with it is that when you tighten this part down to lock it into place once you have it situated where you want it to be, it's just really hard to lock it down into place so it doesn't move. It's too small, it digs into my fingers, and I just wish that it was a lot wider. That'd be easier to crank this thing down, because if you don't crank it down enough, eventually the trigger just starts to flop around. I've been wondering if they should have done a 4-post system here, so side to side and up and down. That way you have a really rock solid, sturdy base for the trigger to stay for just years and years locked in and not moving. Our drums does that, but I feel like they take it a tad too far. They have a post for every single lug on the drum. The best way I can describe this trigger is by saying that it's just a standard stripped down, no nonsense trigger that works very well. It's high quality. It's not like incredibly pretty or anything, but it's cheap and rock solid. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, this will definitely suit your needs. Let's talk about the kick drum trigger now. This is the last trigger. This guy works really, really well. Again, you can slide it from side to side. I was having some double triggering issues, and Jobeky is very responsive if you email them, which is nice. They get back to you very, very quickly. They told me that if you shift the trigger off to the side a little bit on the kick drum, sometimes that helps resolve double triggering issues, and that did work. It's a solid kick drum trigger. You can actually dig in if you want, and it will still work. Sometimes if you dig in too far and you pop back really fast, then you will get that false triggering. But once you mess around with the mask time and the threshold and stuff, and you position the trigger enough, you get a really nice result out of it. You can go double kick on it. Before we cut away to the footage of me actually playing the triggers so you can get an idea of how responsive they are, let me talk about center mounted triggers versus side mounted triggers, because there is a difference between the two. Obviously, center mounted triggers are mounted right there in the very center of your drum. Side mounted triggers are mounted near the edge. When you're hitting a sensor, when you hit right on it, it's going to produce a stronger signal than if you hit farther away from it. So when companies do a side mounted trigger like Jobeky Drum, the reason why they're doing it that way is because they want to have a more even triggering system. So when you hit over here, and in the center, you'll get a general even triggering response. And then of course, if you stray to the part of the rim where the trigger is, then of course it will spike right there. Same with when it's mounted in the center. When you hit around the edge, you'll get a more even trigger response. And then when you hit in the center, it's a lot louder. It's like, it's a spike. And so you gotta decide which of the two evils you wanna do. The great thing about side mounted triggers is that this thing is incredibly cheap. It's cheaper than that center mounted one. So you just gotta decide how you wanna do it. One of the benefits of having the trigger in the center is called positional sensing. This is a Roland thing. So if you have a Roland drum module, I think I've gotten it to work with this snare drum right here, where if you hit near the edge of the snare and near the center, you'll actually get a tonal difference, not necessarily the pitch, but the tone of the drum sound change as you get closer to the center. Positional sensing is a really nice feature that Roland drum modules have. And if you're using a center mounted drum trigger, most of the time you can get that feature on the Roland drum modules to work. So just bear that in mind. You'll get more even triggering out of a side mounted trigger most of the time, but then you'll get positional sensing with a center mounted trigger if you have the right Roland drum module. All right, I'm gonna cut away to footage of me testing out all these drums so you can get an idea of how sensitive they are. And I'll be going over the center mounted ones and the side mounted ones, and of course your kick drum sensor as well. All right, so that's how well these triggers work. As you can see, they're really responsive. I've had a ton of fun playing them. These aren't like extremely pretty drum triggers or anything. There are some companies that make really elegant looking things, but really cheap, and they work, and they're well designed at the same time. Now, here's the thing. No matter what drum trigger you buy from Jobeky or R Drums or any of the ones in America, here's the thing. When you play acoustic drum sizes, when you finally convert an acoustic drum set that you found on Craigslist or whatever for hardly any money, you'll notice a big shift. Let's say you were playing something like an old Roland TD8 or something with smaller drum sizes. You're playing something that has 10 or 8-inch drum pads. When you finally sit down to an acoustic sized electronic drum set, it's a big shift. You'll be really happy you did it. Just the coolness factor goes way up. You know, inspiration is a big part of the music making process. And when you sit down behind an instrument that you're confident in, it looks awesome, it plays really nice, you have great drum software or a great drum module so it sounds good at the same time. Everything works together, and playing on an acoustic drum set that's been made into an electronic drum set is a really fun experience. You gotta try it sometime. Go find a friend that has one or build one yourself. It'll be worth it. Thank you guys so much for taking your time to watch this video. I make tons of videos like this, so think about subscribing if you haven't yet. I'll see you guys in a few. And then, of course, you got these two extendable and contractable, is that a word? And then, of course, it's sitting on this bracket. And then, of course, it's sitting on this little dial right here, whatever you want to call it. I can't remember what this is called. Help me out here. Just leaves have been hitting that glass pane, and it's getting hard to film because it's louder in here. I don't want to ruin the video. Oh well, this will make the outtakes.